Welcome back, family. Welcome to Bettermindz Interrupting with Juan, Trini, and my co-host, Brown Girl Interrupting, Maria.
Hello, hello. Good evening, fam.
And a shout out to our producer, Ja Logic.
For sure.
Now, guess what? It has been 1 month. It's our 1 month anniversary.
Ooh, congratulations. 1 month, girl.
You know,
we made it and we're still standing. That is a
standing.
good thing. There are not a lot of things in my life that stand for 1 month solidly without change.
So, what is the title?
What is the title?
What are you hearing that I'm not saying?
Okay. So
I
know this feeling.
Yeah. So apparently we may have some barriers in our listening skills. I'm just saying, are we listening correctly? There's times I know I have to catch myself because I'm like, gotta focus. It's a lot to do when you're listening. You're not born a listener. It's a skill, baby. You gotta practice it.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And sometimes people are just listening to wait to respond too, right? So there's a whole lot of issues with listening that happens.
There's a whole lot of issues. So many things get in the way of our listening, correct? To become more effective, we must become aware of our barriers and bad habits. So the philosopher Albert Elias, he himself did some research. And one of the barriers he came across was listening to more than one voice at a time. Us and them.
So our barrier is that we're not capable of listening to ourselves and the other person at the same time?
Maybe. It depends.
Okay. Now I'm intrigued. I want to know more.
Okay. So before I give my opinion, let's see what he had to say. Prioritizing what someone is actually saying to you is tricky in this noisy and busy world. We're always receiving emails, texts, phone calls, and notifications when we're out and about, or even just home with a friend, family member, or partner. When we are distracted with all the other noises around us, we can fall into a bad habit of listening to our own thoughts more than what's being said to us. Because of this, we fall into a trap of listening more to give a response than to listening to hear and understand what someone is saying. This isn't a dialogue, but a disguised monologue.
Ooh, I've never heard that one before. A disguised monologue. That is truly what it is, right? When we're not listening to understand. You know, it makes me think of this quote that I've heard before and we use sometimes when we're having dialogue and trying to create dialogue in my job is, can you suspend your own belief to hear someone else's truth? Can we? Can we suspend our own beliefs? Because that is what listening is, right? We're listening to them, not listening for us.
Right. I feel as though we can suspend it. We have to get rid of those limited beliefs that makes us not be able to be open, though.
But so before we get into how, can we cover like what's the impact of not listening? Like, I'm curious to know what the issues are because we're talking about spiritual healing, right? So what's the impact when we don't listen like that comes about in our relationships and our dynamics?
So it's not so much about what the impact is. It's about overcoming these barriers in order to even acknowledge how to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like, okay, well, in order for me to know where the error is, in order for me to have that ending result that I need to do some research first. So we're going to dive into some more barriers. And it might answer that question you got. As a matter of fact, all of them coming is the answer to that question.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Okay.
Our barriers are our impact, right? They're all connected.
That's right. That's right. So the next one is finding the communicator attractive and over connecting with them.
Over connecting. Tell me more about over connecting. How is that a barrier?
Okay, so attraction isn't always about physical appearance. It can also relate to what is being communicated. Conversations can open up to us being emotional, physical, and spiritual attraction and chemistry with another person. While it's needless to say that this is incredibly inappropriate in a professional context, it's also a bad habit to fall into regularly because it usually leads to daydreaming or fantasizing about the person you're talking to rather than listening to what they have to say.
So what I heard, and you can clarify for me, because I heard two things. I heard one, that there's attractiveness, like I am overly drawn to your looks and therefore enamored, and I am like not really focusing on anything you're saying because I'm enamored by you, right? or maybe I'm just not really listening to you because I'm just like stuck in what I think I want to come from this, right? But then it also sounds like I can be enamored by your words, that I'm not really listening to what they are, and I'm agreeing with you without really having an understanding of what you're saying.
Because you have that attraction. Like you could be so into the accent, or you could be so into their lips because they talking. They could have perfect teeth or whatever it could be. Their voice could be just beautiful to you. And instead of you listening to them, you go into a daydream of, oh, you're so beautiful. You start fantasizing.
Yeah.
And then it turns into an attraction instead of, what? Let me listen to what you got to really say. I'm interested in what you're saying, not the other features that's making me attract to what you're saying.
So, and that's interesting because I think, hello, lovely ladies. It's Brandy here with us. I'm excited for tonight's discussion too. Can't wait to hear some of your thoughts. What's up, Shaharia? It's so nice to see you. Good evening.
Hello.
So I'm thinking, like, when you say all that, like, I think, is that also kind of the barriers to relationships just a little bit when it comes to like dating? Like, I've been hearing all this stuff about sometimes men and women, like people, right, are attracted to someone's looks, that they get caught up in that they actually think they have a connection that they don't, because they haven't actually listened to each other. They've just been really infatuated with each other, right? Like, and so it's a barrier. It's a barrier to real listening and really knowing who someone is.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
So that's over attraction.
Over attraction.
Okay. So what's another?
Not
barrier?
Attraction. Over connecting.
Over connecting. Thank you. Okay. Over connecting. So what's another barrier?
How many things I had connected? I said the voice, the smile, the teeth, the lips. That's over connecting to the conversation when you should be focusing on the words. Okay, so next, finding the communicator unattractive and disconnecting with them.
Ooh. Okay.
Okay. So on the opposite side of the scale, being put off by someone for who they are, what they believe in, how they look, or what they're saying is abhorrent behavior. But all of us are guilty of this to some degree. Whether it's some style of clothing, I got a perfect example: teeth, bad teeth, skin, weight, beliefs, opinions, accent, hygiene, disconnecting with someone on a superficial or undeveloped basis is inconsiderate and the sign of a poor listener. We need to learn how to fundamentally understand people by making peace with who people are and the imperfections that come with them. Everyone deserves to be heard and understood first and foremost.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So our disconnection
Mm-hmm.
is because we're turned off by something. So we've already shut things down before they even started. So we are not being good listeners because we're not giving a chance to anybody.
Right.
Based on superficial aspects, not genuine, real reasons. Like, it's not like you've literally said something to shut me down in this conversation. I disconnected, but rather it's like, you're wearing cowboy boots, and yeah, I'll do that. Right? like something little like that, something basic, right? Like
Right.
It's just, or political beliefs, or right. Like, so we're making, it sounds almost like when you make assumptions about someone based on previous beliefs or expectations or whatever, right? That you shut down a conversation, and because you're shutting down the conversation, or shutting down the person mentally, you're not listening to them and anything they have to say. So you haven't given them a chance.
That's right.
So you're a bad listener.
Mm-hmm.
What's up? Hey there, Palmer Suze. That's Andrew. Yo, what's up?
Okay, so the next one. Driven more by being right than listening, hearing, and understanding.
Oh, I got one word for you. Ego. That is your freaking ego. The number of times that ego shit has come in the way of a conversation, I know. And I will say, okay, so I'm going to take ownership. It probably has been my own ego at times, but I think more often I've seen other people's egos take over a conversation because they want to be right. And it's not about, it doesn't sound like a dialogue. It sounds like a debate. And that's not conversation. Conversation shouldn't be debates.
Exactly. It should not be debates. So we all operate out of a fixed set of beliefs. But this behavior tends to show itself more frequently when it comes to those who operate from the rational side of their mind. Our beliefs are a set of ideas we invested, and when we were younger and built our lives upon, they became limited. When we're rigid in our thinking and are unwilling to acknowledge there is any degree of truth outside our realm of knowledge, life becomes more about right and wrong than understanding. Wisdom evolves from taking the time to compare what we know with that outside of the realm of understanding.
I think that one reminds me so much of that quote, right? Like, this idea is that, can we suspend our own beliefs and, to be able to hear someone else's truths? You have to be able to recognize that there are more beliefs than your own. Right. You have to expand. You said limited beliefs, so we have to expand from the limited to the expansive, wider possibility of all the different ways of seeing things and the possibilities.
Right.
And we got to be flexible in our thinking.
Right. We got to be open.
And there's no binary. It's not a right or wrong. It's all gray.
No judgment, no nothing. You're just there to listen.
So listening really is like, it's a role you're playing, it sounds like, and you have to be prepared to take on that role
Mm-hmm.
with that flexibility, with that that openness, in order to actually gain something from a conversation with someone else.
That's correct. That's you on the money today.
Sometimes
Okay.
I get it. Every
So
once in a while.
another barrier, over identifying with an idea instead of trying it on for size. This is something which happens with those who operate more out of the emotional part of their mind. When we cling onto ideas and information as an ultimate truth, our small thinking prevents us from understanding more. Sometimes people will spend more energy defending the little that they think they know rather than investing that energy into deepening their understanding and allowing that understanding to be challenged.
Okay. So I was thinking, like, when you said it, over identifying with an idea, is it almost like when people don't think for themselves, right? Like, so kind of being a sheep almost, right? Like, I'm just going to go with it because it's being said, right? And that happens a lot with like kind of those, there's so many people on social media these days who I think people follow.
Right.
Not us, because we not we know don't be sheep to us. We critical consciousness
Right.
here. We are different. But there are folks on social media who got this one message, this one narrative, right? And they are pushing people to follow it. And there are people who just accept it. Like, they accept everything they hear with no question whatsoever. And that's the over identifying with an idea, right? Like, you are just going to take it without questioning it, without wondering, without having some critical thinking yourself. And that's not being a good listener either. That's just like absorbing. That's not the same thing.
And it's funny you say that, because it also states that the modern education system promotes the idea that learning consists of digesting and regurgitating information for specific periods of time. Let's face it, most of us studied like crazy at school to try and pass exams, but we all forgot the information we crammed into our heads within a few weeks after our exams. Growing that rational part of our mind doesn't help us grow our relational skills unless we apply the knowledge to ourselves and grow through the process. And I would like to add on to that. If you never research stuff people tells you, like you said, you're just a guinea pig. Am I right? Like, you just you just willingly accepting everything, and you just taking it all at face value. You're not doing no research, you're not checking, you're not doing none of that.
And that is not someone who's spiritually healed, because people who are spiritually healed are open, but also they're aware that there are so many different ways of being and thinking. And so you can't accept just one thing for the truth, right? The truth has so many different shades.
That's true. Okay. Next, sympathizing with someone instead of empathizing with them. That's a big one. Sympathizing is a superficial form of empathy. When we extend our sympathy to someone, we're doing nothing for the other person except perhaps feeding an unhealthy need they have. Empathy, however, is when we extend ourselves to ensure we understand another person's experience as much as feasibly possible. Mm-hmm. Empathy seeks to understand another person's perspective and uncover how their experience is holding them back mentally and emotionally. So if if I am being passionate about listening to you, right? There's no reason for me not to look at your perspective, whether I agree with it or not. I'm here to what?
Listen.
Listen.
Yes, listen.
Listen. That's all I'm here to do.
And I will say, that goes
I'm
back to last week, doesn't it? A little bit too, right? This idea of like having a neutral person to listen to you as a friend is key.
It's key.
So, hey, Zenaida, Z, nice to see you. Love it, ladies. Excellent. Yes. Hey, Josie, what's up, Jose? It's like the hamster on the wheel, for sure. So I want to come back to this sympathizing and empathizing. It is so powerful. I don't think we think about that enough, because the difference to me, like when I think about those things, is like when you have sympathy for someone, what you truly are actually having to some degree is pity.
Right.
You're not actually understanding them. You're like, oh, that's so sad for you, right? Like that's it, right? It's a pity thing, like, oh, right?
And
but like, nobody wants that. Like, that's not what I needed you for as a friend. That's not what I came to you for as in a relationship, or, you know, as a spouse, whatever it is, right? But empathy is the idea that, like, I am listening to understand you, because what I'm saying is I feel your emotion. I feel your hurt, your sadness, whatever it may be, whether or not I actually fully understand it. And I have to admit that. I have to say, you know what, like, and for example, like, say if someone has a parent or a family member pass away, right? Like, and this has happened. I've had that, you know, a friend had, you know, a child that she knew passed away, right? I don't know the feeling of it. I don't know the experience, but I can empathize to understand how that may impact you.
Right.
And that's not a pity, but it's an empathy of recognizing your pain as valid pain and wanting to be supportive of that pain.
Right. You got it.
Okay. All right. But you know, we got to keep breaking it down. Active listening. Yes. Active listening. Thank you. Yes, Brandy. Trini's got the facts, right? That's it.
You on fire. Okay, so the next one, allowing prejudice and preferences to undermine the learning process. When we allow our own prejudice to undermine the learning process, it comes at the cost of our life experiences. For example, say you were meeting up with an old best mate who you hadn't seen in years, and you start fantasizing about the meetup. You've told all your other friends about how great this old best mate of yours is, how you kept in contact through texting, and they're always so considerate and generous, and they're your best friend ever, despite not having seen each other in nearly a decade. Finally, the day comes when you meet up for drinks or two, and you have no chemistry. You both don't know what to say to each other, and you find that they have some mannerisms which irk you. You come away from the evening heartbroken and disappointed, and you subconsciously blame your friend for not being as good as you. Disappointment only ever arises when our expectations are not met. I'm going to read that again. Disappointment only ever arises when our expectations are not met. When we put too much emphasis on meeting our expectations, we overlook and ignore all the lessons and experiences we are going through, which are worthwhile in themselves.
You know, when you were saying that whole scenario, on my paper, I was writing expectations and disappointment. Right? Like, I heard it before you said it, because that's exactly what it is, right? Like, we will be let down because we have an expectation, and because we're let down and it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, we expected it to, we had this hope for it to, we have now limited the possibility of seeing any benefit in that moment, any possibility in that conversation, because it isn't the way we pictured it to be. So we have to like dismantle this idea of pictures that we create in our mind, because they're the ones that stop us from then being better listeners. Okay. Okay. We got more?
We got more.
Okay.
We have more. And then, the second half of the show, then we'll come up with some solutions together to see what to answer the other part of your question that you asked. How can we, what are the steps?
And I got some questions for you after we go through these, because I want to get into the impacts, because I do think these impacts are important, and I think I know what how we're going to get to them, because we got to think about those impacts. We got the barriers, but once we identify them, if we don't know how they show up and what they impact our relationships with, then we're not understanding the need and the importance of having to shift them.
Absolutely.
All right, so what's next?
So, having preconceived ideas or expectations about what you will hear.
Okay.
This concept is very similar to the previous one, except it involves listening and selective hearing. What are you hearing that I'm not saying?
Selective hearing, that's a real one.
For example, people with a negative self-image and low confidence will go around with a heightened sense of awareness to criticism and negativity coming their way. When they are critiqued or perhaps confronted in any shape or form, they will amplify it in their own mind to be bigger or more serious than it was. If they get called into their boss office, they prepare themselves for a scolding and come out feeling scolded, when all they've been given was gentle, constructive criticism. The same can happen in reverse. A parent overlooks what a teacher tells them about their child's bad behavior because they went into parents' evening expecting only to hear adoring praises of their beloved child, and a person madly in love doesn't hear the partner's unfair and excessive snide comments because they only listen blindly for the good. This can affect them as well.
So I would say sometimes traumas and other things may trigger us to hear things that aren't being said.
Right. That is true.
What are you hearing that I'm not saying?
What are you hearing that I'm not saying?
That's a real one.
I need you to really get out of your thoughts and pay attention and just.
But it's a hard thing to do, though, because I think that goes back to why we do that, right? Like, why do some people have those preconceived notions? We have to unpack that a little bit for people, or they have to unpack it. You have to personally unpack that for yourself. I'm not saying it's what we're doing right now. I'm saying in general, right? You got to understand why that might be coming up for you. Why are you creating that story in your head? What's making you go there?
Right. And also, what's up with your attention span? You got to get down to that part.
Right. So
you only hear what you want to cause confrontation, Palmer Studios. Yes, that is true. You hear what you want to cause confrontation.
So I'm going to challenge this, because yes, sometimes to cause confrontation, but I think sometimes it's to confirm your own belief. So I am affirming myself by confirming my own belief if I hear what I want. So yes, I was right. You are an asshole, right? Like I'm confirmed. I'm confirming.
Check this out. If you only hear what you want, you're going to miss the whole apology that you are getting. And you're turning it into something else because you cut it off. Yes, I'm apologizing about that. You don't have to. You're missing out on it. That is,
And that's why it's a barrier to listening, right? That's the whole point. It's a barrier.
It's a barrier.
It's a barrier.
That was a good one. Okay. Here we go. Being distracted by obvious external factors. It's easy to allow ourselves to be distracted by things we don't need to be focusing on, such as the cars outside, a conversation happening at another table, a dog barking, your phone vibrating in your pocket, or the smell of some delicious food passing by. People will notice when another person is distracted, when they're speaking to them, and will closely themselves off more in response. They will close themselves off, more in response. The second you demonstrate you're a distracted listener, you lose the trust of the person speaking, and they will withhold more intimate details from the conversation and keep it at surface level. We can't allow the world going on around us to impact our conversations with others, especially in a helping environment. So have you ever was talking to somebody and you're going on and then they're not paying attention?
Oh yeah, no, I think so. When you said that, right away I was triggered because I was thinking about this moment when I'm talking to someone, and it used to happen all the time, and their eyes are on their phone. How can you be listening to me if you are doing this? Right? You're not. But and I think so. If I was saying something that was simple, like let's take out the trash, or like I didn't like the taste of the dinner today, whatever it is, that's different. But when you're in a real heavy conversation, when you're having a real serious emotional conversation, and someone is doing this right in front of you,
that's rude.
Your trust has been broken, because what I see there is that you do not respect me enough to listen and to put value to the words that I'm saying, enough to value the time that you need to commit to them, right? Like, so if you are looking at your phone, you're certainly not processing what I'm saying, and you're not giving me that value of time that I am giving to you. Because if I'm sharing something about myself, I'm giving you my time to do it, right?
Exactly.
So, yes. And yes, Andrew, listening is an art, which is why we're trying to master it in our spiritual healing.
Art. We slip up sometimes. We're not perfect listeners every day, every hour.
No.
We're not.
No, we're not. And I think that goes to what Shaharia just said, right? It's got benefits and disadvantages. Listening has benefits and disadvantages.
Yes.
I
would agree with that. We're talking about the disadvantages right now.
For washing our hands.
Wash our hands.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the last one. Listening more to what might be said instead of actively listening to accurately hear what is actually being said. People who are more rationally minded don't believe in the significance of speech, which is simplistic and straightforward. They prefer to invest in complexity and the unfolding of conversation. As a more exaggerative but illustrative example, these people may hear a sentence such as, "The curtains were blue," and ask the person to repeat as to why they shared this information by asking, "Are you saying my curtains should be blue?" In other words, these people add meaning onto what you're saying, either by reading too much into it or by imposing their insecurities, judgments, or perspectives onto it. Sometimes there really isn't any more to a sentence than there is. While you may argue that a compliment was a backhanded one, which was insinuating something else, or someone's remark was passive aggressive despite being polite to the outside world. But there's little to no benefit in imposing meaning onto speech because we'll never be in a position to deny or confirm our suspicions. We can't access the recesses of someone's psyche, and we can't read minds. We can only go based on what we hear. Of course, we must always ask for clarification if we are confused by what a person is saying. But imposing deep meaning into a dialogue over complicates a situation to the point that it can be deemed confrontational and dismissive of what a person is saying.
Okay, so Trini, I'm smiling as you're saying that because I'm like, oh damn, she just described me to a T. Like, I feel like every person that has ever been friends with me, that has ever interacted with me, is like, oh shit, that's what Maria does all the time. Like, I'm the worst. I am the worst. Overthinkers. This is what overthinkers do consistently. Like, they hear all the things that may not have been said, but it's not. So okay, and I gotta push back now because I'm like, it doesn't make me a bad listener, or does it make me a really deep thinker?
Like, at that time, at that moment, it makes you a bad listener.
Okay, so, and there are like 6 friends in this audience, so I know I'm gonna need somebody to chime in. Is this my bad listening skills, or is this? What's up, Simone? Thank you for being here.
Hello, Simone.
Seriously, I gotta literally ask, like, is this bad listening skills, or like, so when? Okay, so this is my question. This is my question for the audience and for you. When does that overthinking become confrontational? Because you said that, right? And
right.
When is it just deepening and extending a conversation? Where's the balance between that?
Okay, so let's say we're going to deal with the confrontational one first.
Okay.
So let's say I came to you and I said, Maria, this is the title of the show. What are you hearing that I'm not saying? And you would say, I really like that title. You should call it, Are You Listening?
Okay. All right. Well, that's confrontational because I changed it too.
You changed it.
Okay. So that's confrontational. But what if I said, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. What if I said, I really like that title? Was this the direction you were going in? And I ask a question about that. Like, is that over analyzing? Is that confrontational?
Well, it depends. If I say this is the set title, there should be no more added on to it. But if I come to you and say, I'm thinking about this title because I want to talk about this, what you think? Then that will be a place for you to add into it.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying, because I think what you're saying is that when an overthinker overanalyzes to the point where they change what you're saying, it becomes confrontational. When an overthinker analyzes and just extends and asks questions, then it's just like, okay, yeah, I just know that Maria asked a whole lot of damn questions. Like, that's it, right? Like, there ain't no way I'm gonna say something to Maria and it isn't gonna be other Coletta question. I mean, like, and I'm literally, this is what the running joke is in my office with my friends, like in relationships. Like, this is me. I am an overthinker who asks a hell of a lot of questions. Thus, brown girl interrupting, right?
Like, you. And the best part about it is you're aware of that.
I am. So, and that's the other thing, I guess, right? Because people who are confrontational aren't aware of it, because it sounds like it's more my ego, because I think I know more than you to be able to say that to you, versus I accept what you're saying and I'm pushing like some other, I'm not pushing, but I'm like offering other ideas too, right? So Andrew says, if you're doing double speak, I will pick up on it. Okay, double speak is different, right? Because that's confrontational.
That's confrontational. It is. It is.
Okay, Ja says, to me, it's confrontational when you project your insecurities on someone's point. Okay, see, that I also see. That is different. That is projecting your idea because you're insecure. And that goes back to your ego.
Right.
To me, that's all ego. Insecurity is all about ego.
Yep. Okay, Brandy say, I believe that our rigid thinking patterns create a barrier between truly connecting and getting beneath what lies beyond the surface. That is so true.
Yes.
It's
It's
a blockage.
And it's a barrier to being listeners. And when we're not listening, we're not growing.
The Renters Union, they spoke on insecurities in what she read. Can you run that back? Let's see. You talking about the last one I just read?
Yes. And Keith says on the defense. Yeah, so you're on the defense. That's why you're being confrontational, and that's different.
Right. Okay, so I said people who are more rationally minded don't believe in the significance of speech, which is simplistic and straightforward. They prefer to invest in complexity and the unfolding of conversation. As a more exaggerative but illustrative example, these people may hear a sentence such as "the curtains was blue" and ask the person to reiterate as to why they shared this information by asking, "Are you saying my curtains should be blue?" In other words, these people add meaning onto what you're saying, either by reading too much into it or by imposing their insecurities, judgments, or perspectives onto it. Sometimes there really isn't any more to a sentence there than there is.
I like it. And I like that connection back, Ja, for sure, right? That is exactly it. It is imposing your insecurities onto someone else because of your ego and because you are being confrontational intentionally or unintentionally. It could be even unintentional, but most likely, if that's the case, I'm going to think it's intentional.
Right.
I think you know what you're doing.
Right. This is so I'm going to intentionally let y'all see this video that will explain how to get into your mind, body, and soul through scents, crystals, soaps, and candles. So before we go, let's see. Dora Key says some people assume that everything is about them and that anything a person say is an attack on them. They assume the worst. That is true.
Mm-hmm. And that's all insecurity coming out, right? If it's all about me, that's an insecurity bit from my ego.
Yep.
That I'm making it about me when it's not really about me.
That's right.
Yeah. All right.
Welcome back. Okay, so to elaborate a little bit more on the video that you just saw, it's based on your 7 chakras that relies from here all the way down to your pelvic bone. And once you know how to balance all of those, you will learn a lot of new things about yourself and become in tune with yourself as well as inside and outside, especially with your aura. So
I love it. And at first, I gotta say, Brandy says, great conversation tonight. Spot on. Thank you so much, Brandy. Thank you for being in the chat with us. Okay, so before we go on, I gotta ask you some questions. I got a question for you. And I just want to know, because this is why we're having this conversation, right? That's right. I want to know, why are these barriers problematic in our relationships with others and for our own spiritual healing? What's happening because of these barriers in our listening?
Well, in terms of different people experience different things, feel different ways, and think differently. So what I'm hearing, and get my listening skills on, what I have heard is there's an emotion that's behind this, right? So if you're experiencing any of these barriers, then there's an emotion behind it. There's frustration, there's anxiety, anger. When you are emotionally in distraught, can you think right?
You're blocked.
So if you can't think right, if your emotions is downhill, how can you listen? It's almost like, you ugly. What? You didn't even hear what I said. If you would have heard the complete thing, then you would have known that I was singing the song, blah, 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 but you took the "you ugly" personally. Maybe you have an insecurity going on that you feel that way. And the block.
So our emotions are getting in the way of us being able to hear, because we're so filled with the emotions that we're probably only getting like 20% of the actual conversation.
That's right.
And it might be that 20% isn't even the right 20%. Like I might have also put my own ego into that 20%, right? So now
I was just about to say, and within that, we have to be logical. I was just about to say that. Yes, we have to take the emotions out and be logical.
Okay. That's helpful, right? But I think that's really important for us to understand, because if what we're working towards is spiritual healing, it's like, so why is this detrimental to me to not be a good listener? Because what it is I'm allowing my emotions to drive the way I'm processing information, not being logical and rational and looking at reality. And I think, there's always through lines of all of our podcasts. So if y'all haven't checked it out yet, go back to season 1. And we have a podcast all about perception versus reality. And that's what this is, right? So when you are not a strong listener, you are focused on perception and not the reality of what's happening in the conversation.
Correct.
Okay. Correct. All right. So now what do we do about it?
Okay. So we have to dig deep. We got to go in these trenches. We got to be in the trenches when it comes to ourselves. That's why we have to what? I'm going to say this every time. We got to be aware of ourselves. We got to know what pisses us off. We got to know what triggers us. We got to know what we like, what we don't like. We have to get our insecurities under wraps. We got to look, we have to be open Take yourself out of the box. Stop being in the box all the damn time. Come on out of it. It's okay. Especially when you're in the professional sense. Be open. Right? Even if it's personal, in your personal life, you want to also be open. You want to leave those judgments out when you're talking to your partner, or you want to leave those judgments out when you're talking to a real close friend. This is how you can also build trust. This is how you can get trust back by becoming the effective listener. Try it. Go to somebody. If there's anybody in your life that you want to get back cool with, whether it's a best friend or somebody that you used to hang out with, or your mate, maybe y'all mad, whatever. When the topic come up, focus and listen. Watch how your conversations intertwine.
I like that. I like that because I think that's the self-awareness piece, right? Is and it has to go to your relationships, because to me, this is the spiritual healing. And I say this because this is probably where I have been in my healing journey. And you told me today I was doing a really good job. So I just want to say, y'all, I'm getting an A+ in this journey.
Yes, she is.
I'm playing, y'all. I'm always trying to crack a joke, but that is just who I am, right? So look, on my A+ journey, what I have learned is that it's not about the certainty that comes with rigid thinking. It's the flexibility of recognizing and understanding that you have to be open to the possibility of anything and let go of the expectations of the certainty. That is the spiritual healing, because it allows for you to accept things with grace.
That's true.
Whether or not it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm. That's
and
right.
So as a listener, whether I'm listening to someone else or I'm listening even to myself sometimes, I've got to do it with that openness, with that awareness, and with that ability to let go of the need for certainty and need for an answer.
Right, because the problem that we have is we want closure. Why? Why?
I think we've been conditioned into this idea of closure too, though, right? I think it's a conditioning. I really do. Like, for some reason, someone somewhere years and years ago said everybody needs to have closure. You got to end everything with some kind of seal, right?
Yeah, in order to move on, you need to know. You got to have that closure. No, you don't need no closure. Go and get your ass over there and keep it moving.
No, you don't. You have to have peace. You don't have to have closure, right? Simone says, yes, I love it. We love you, Simone. Thank you. Yes, right? Like, it is not about closure. It's about the peace within yourself. So if you can be a good listener, then you are centering yourself in your role as a listener.
That's right.
And you'll be better for the people around you so that you can receive what they may need you to hold for them.
That's right. So I hear that you are writing on something. Have you came up with something?
I am actually. I just wrote a recent, literally today, post called Alone in the Universe.
Uh-oh.
How do you subscribe, Vincent, to, well, you'll find out in just a moment. Check it out. Hi, my name is Maria, but you are soon going to know me as Brown Girl Interrupting. And what I mean by that is that very soon, hopefully, you're going to be following my blog. I am a writer, and I started writing because I was married, I had children, and then my life changed when I separated, and I did a lot of learning and reflecting and growing in that process of change, because change always leads us to that. And I've decided to share that with the rest of the world, because sometimes hearing that someone else is going through the same thing as you, or understanding and putting words to the feelings and experiences we're having, helps us to heal from them, or grow from them, or learn from them. And so that's what my blog is. It's writing about life, healing, relationships, parenting, dating, marriage, pain, love, mistakes, growth, and coming out whole still in all of it as a human, flawed, but always open to new things. So that's my life, that's my journey, and it's written in this blog. But my hope is that you are going to go to www.browngirlinterrupting.com and join and subscribe to the blog and read all about my story to help you maybe gain some perspective on yours.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Salute, Smiles Network, V Smiles. And if you haven't done it yet, check out V Smiles show. The Smiles Network comes on just before ours, 8 to 9 on the iRant Network. What's up? Steph got jokes. Salute. It's so nice to see so many folks from the iRant Network on all these great other folks. Closure is an emotional want, but not a realistic need. Furthermore, closure is a luxury that we don't always have. Yes, Ja, for sure.
Yes, that is so correct.
I love that. It is a luxury.
It is. I am actually, Brandy, constantly practicing active and effective listening with my son, Dwight. He's 8 years old and is full of brilliant ideas. I feel forward practicing patience to ensure that he feels heard. And that sometimes you got to get that extra oomph, because just to make them feel good that you're listening. That's where that empathy part come in at. You're showing empathy.
And that is such an important life skill too, right? Because the truth of the matter, what you're doing there, Brandy, is modeling it for him to do it for others too, right? So like he is then going to be that active listener for the people in his life and for you, right? Like that is huge, right? And I think it's exactly what you just said, like, and what Trini said at the very beginning is like, we're not born knowing how to listen. We have to learn. We have to teach our kids, and we have to learn as adults, even in our late ages, right, to be better listeners. So, yes. And for more on even that, like I will say, just going back to that commercial, right? The blog is connected to that. Alone in the Universe that I just wrote is definitely connected to the idea of opening my mind to listening a little bit better and thinking about listening to myself more so in this case, but that listening.
Now you see what you do all the time? Because I did not know the title of her blog. And what we said previously, that for some reason, our podcast and our ideas always connect.
They do. They do. Like literally, we are on the same wavelength. We are sisters from different misters, right? That's a luxurious headband you're wearing, Queen. Steph got jokes. It sure is. It sure is the bling.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So does anybody have any questions or experience they want to talk about as far as a barrier to listening or any other thing you might want to say?
Well, I got a question then about that for our audience or for you.
Okay.
When has your inability to listen had a detrimental impact on a relationship dynamic for you where you finally learned that you need to be a better listener? Like, what was your moment when you realized you needed to be a better listener?
Oh, this title. Title.
Tell me more.
My husband, who is Palmer Studios, and we was going through something, and he was talking to me. He was explaining something to me, and I was like, "Oh, so this and that, blah blah blah." And he was like, "What are you hearing that I'm not saying?" And I was like, "Damn, am I not listening? Why would he say that to me?" So at that point and at that moment, I just had to, okay, well, let me look deeper into how I pay attention. And is he just playing with me, or am I being a bad listener, or am I not listening for real? Let me see. But that was an instance.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like you learned something about yourself because there are elements of your listening that you shifted.
Right.
Okay. All right. Steph, have you ever been dating while still missing an ex? Is that just a question? Or we just yeah, for sure. No, Trini's saying no. Okay, no, never.
No, my husband called me Mr. Cameron for a reason, because I cut you off quick. That's it. There's no missing. No, I'm taking you completely out. Completely.
I think it depends on how fresh an ex and how they became an ex too, right? So for some folks, yeah, not at all. Like not at all, right? Like not even on the radar. But for some, yes. Yeah. Like, there are times in my life where I have been sad because I was not the one that made them an ex. They made themselves an ex, right? So yeah, it happens, right? Probably because I wasn't as good a listener as maybe I needed to be, who knows, right? Like my listening skills have gotten better.
This is true, because what is the one thing that men say women don't do?
Oh, listen. It's
and
listening.
I'm gonna help y'all fellas out tonight, because maybe it's true. You might say, "Oh, I don't want nothing for my birthday," and what we do? We come back with a bunch of shit. And you just
so what I heard you say was you want a party.
I told this woman I ain't want nothing. That's just a little, leave you with a little laughter for the night.
That's for sure. And that's true. And I will say, for me, just as a final thought, I have learned a lot about listening in my last particular 3 years, because what I've realized is that, yeah, there were things I didn't do right in my marriage when it came to being a better listener for different reasons. Some I'll own and some I think were given to me. But but what I'm learning is that I can't allow my past experiences to dictate how I listen to my present experiences, because I'm not hearing the same thing.
That's
and
right.
I have to recognize that.
Right. So, that's right.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, ladies, for this insightful conversation. Oh, what are we both reading right now?
I am reading so much. I am actually on a journey to reading 100 books in 30 days. So I am reading Meadow Nectar volumes 1 through 7, as well as it's another set that I can't get in my head right now because a bunch of books is just running through my mind. But yes, check out that Meadow Nectar book. We all need that. METUNETER.
Meta nectar. Okay. Well, so I have to say, Trini is way better than me. I read a lot for work, which means I piecemeal a lot of books for work, which means that I don't do a lot of individual personal reading. But I will say that I have been working for a really long time working on this one book that is actually a really great read and a really easy read. It's just that I have not put the time into reading it as well as I should, which is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And I think when we're talking about spiritual healing and we're talking about examining and reimagining your life, Glennon Doyle is a amazing writer who really like takes apart her own life and talks about how she unlearned, particularly as a woman, a lot of these constrictions and rigid thinking and inflexibility that we have about ourselves as women. And so check it out, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. And if you're not reading that and you want a short read, there's a blog I could recommend called Brown Girl Interrupting, which has a whole lot of things to read. Thanks for that easy entry point, Brandy. Do appreciate it.
Exactly. Amazon.
Amazon, where can we access resources regarding tonight's topic if we want to continue to dive deeper independently? Well, I think and maybe Trini, some of the things you were reading from, you can offer or put in links. We can put them in links
but that
in
is,
the podcast.
That is a part of my coaching, so it's not in nothing.
Redemption Song, what's up? Redemption Song says yes. Twerk a book, make them pages clap. That is the way to read a book for sure. Salute.
Every time. That's right, Palmer Studios. Yes.
Every time.
That just threw me off. I'm sorry.
Twerk a book, right? They make them pages clap. Yo, we're getting to the witching hour of our evening because it's getting late. So
yeah, it's getting late.
Thank you for joining us today, for being in our chat, for engaging. This was awesome. Trini, you know I always love talking to you. You make my day, and I learned so much.
We love being here with you all. And you know what? You know when to come back. What we're going to do? Same bat time, same bat channel.
Lots of love, Redemption. Thank you.
9 p.m.
Thank you, Brandy, for being here. So appreciate you all. Next week, 9 p.m. What's our topic?
Oh. Why you gotta hit me like that?
Oh.
I gotta find out.
We're gonna find out.